Dale Carnegie begins the book with the crucial idea that criticism, condemnation, or complaining serves no purpose other than to alienate people. He asserts that when we criticize someone, it wounds their pride, ignites their defensiveness, and damages relationships. This idea is not just theoretical. Carnegie provides vivid real-world examples to illustrate its profound importance. One such story recounts how Charles Schwab, a prominent steel magnate, built loyalty among his employees by using praise rather than criticism. Instead of reprimanding workers for mistakes, Schwab found ways to encourage them. Carnegie recalls that Schwab once saw employees smoking under a no-smoking sign. Instead of chastising them, Schwab handed them cigars and requested they smoke outside, effectively diffusing the situation without creating resentment. This small act underscores the book's first principle. Avoiding direct criticism can preserve harmony and foster goodwill. Carnegie's advice is rooted in psychological truths. He emphasizes that people are naturally motivated by their self-esteem and a desire for recognition. When their dignity is attacked, even indirectly, it breeds animosity. He contrasts this with the power of understanding and kindness, which lead to cooperation and lasting relationships. This principle applies universally, from personal interactions to professional environments. Carnegie shares another anecdote of Abraham Lincoln, who refrained from sending harshly critical letters to his generals during the Civil War, opting instead for measured communication. This deliberate avoidance of blame helped Lincoln maintain loyalty among his staff during tumultuous times. The second major idea Carnegie introduces is the importance of appreciation. People thrive on being valued and recognized for their contributions, no matter how small. Carnegie recounts how Andrew Carnegie, no relation, wrote personal notes of gratitude to his employees, acknowledging their specific accomplishments. This approach transformed workplace culture, making employees feel seen and appreciated. The example of Schwab's leadership also serves here. Schwab famously said that he earned his high salary not for his technical knowledge, but for his ability to inspire enthusiasm and confidence in others. Honest and sincere appreciation builds people up rather than tearing them down. It creates a positive emotional connection, encouraging them to go above and beyond in their endeavors. Carnegie warns against empty flattery, distinguishing it from genuine appreciation. While flattery is superficial and often manipulative, true appreciation stems from understanding and valuing someone's effort. He references Benjamin Franklin, who mastered the art of sincere praise during his diplomatic career. Franklin's ability to focus on people's strengths enabled him to win allies in both business and politics. Carnegie challenges readers to look for opportunities to express gratitude, whether for a colleague's timely help, a family member's thoughtfulness, or even a stranger's small acts of kindness. These moments, though seemingly insignificant, accumulate to create lasting relationships. In the third chapter of Part 1, Carnegie explores the power of focusing on what others want rather than fixating on our own desires. He reminds readers that influence stems not from coercion, but from understanding the goals and motivations of others. The chapter begins with a vivid analogy. A fisherman uses worms to catch fish, not food he personally enjoys. Similarly, effective communication involves offering people what they want, not imposing your preferences on them. Carnegie shares an example of a businessman who failed to secure a deal because he focused on his company's needs instead of addressing the client's concerns. When the businessman finally listened and tailored his proposal to align with the client's interests, the deal succeeded. This story highlights the principle of arousing in others an eager want. Carnegie's emphasis on understanding others extends beyond business. He recounts a story of a young boy who was reluctant to eat his vegetables. Instead of forcing the boy, his father appealed to the boy's desire to grow strong and tall like his favorite athlete. This simple reframing motivated the child to willingly eat what was healthy for him. The principle is clear. People respond better when they see how their needs are being addressed. This concept is deeply rooted in human nature. We are drawn to those who help us achieve our goals. The author further reinforces his point with an anecdote about a wealthy philanthropist who garnered community support for a project by appealing to people's pride in their hometown. By emphasizing how the project would enhance the town's reputation, the philanthropist gained widespread cooperation. Carnegie underscores that success in influencing others lies in showing them the personal benefits of any action or decision. This principle, when applied consistently, can transform interactions in all areas of life. Throughout Part 1, Carnegie weaves in timeless wisdom with practical examples. He reminds readers that human interactions are governed by emotions rather than pure logic. When we criticize, it feels like an attack on someone's identity. When we appreciate, it feels like a validation of their worth. And when we focus on their wants, it shows that we respect their individuality. These three principles form the foundation for handling people effectively. Avoid criticism, give sincere appreciation, and arouse in others an eager want. By mastering these techniques, Carnegie promises anyone can build trust, influence, and goodwill in their personal and professional relationships. Carnegie begins Part 2 by highlighting a fundamental truth. People are drawn to those who show genuine interest in them. He opens with the principle, become genuinely interested in other people. This chapter emphasizes that authentic interest in others fosters trust and connection. Carnegie recounts Theodore Roosevelt's practice of learning as much as possible about his guests' interests before meeting them. Roosevelt's attention to detail made his guests feel important and valued. The chapter also recalls how a salesman increased his client base by remembering hobbies, family details, and birthdays of potential customers, transforming simple interactions into meaningful relationships. Carnegie explains that taking the time to know someone and investing in their interests signals respect and makes them more receptive. In the second chapter, Carnegie introduces the power of a smile. The principle here is simple yet impactful. Smile. He illustrates how smiling creates an inviting atmosphere and builds rapport. Carnegie tells the story of a sales team that doubled its results by hiring people who smiled genuinely during interactions. He explains that a sincere smile communicates warmth and optimism, even in challenging circumstances. A smile, he says, costs nothing but delivers immense value. Carnegie reinforces this with the example of a telephone operator who won over frustrated callers simply by smiling during phone conversations, a practice that could be felt even though it wasn't seen. The lesson is clear. A smile can diffuse tension, make interactions memorable, and leave a positive impression. The third chapter focuses on remembering people's names, introducing the principle. Remember that a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. Carnegie explains that a name is central to a person's identity. Remembering and using it in conversation makes people feel valued and respected. He shares the example of Jim Farley, a politician who rose to prominence by memorizing thousands of names and personal details. Farley's ability to recall not only names but also facts about individuals allowed him to form lasting connections. Carnegie also tells of a hotel clerk whose habit of using guest names earned him loyal customers and glowing reviews. By making the effort to remember names, you demonstrate attentiveness and respect, setting the foundation for strong relationships. The fourth chapter shifts focus to the art of listening, captured in the principle, be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves. Carnegie emphasizes that most people are not truly heard in their daily lives. By listening attentively, you stand out and create deeper connections. He recounts a dinner party where he captivated a botanist simply by asking about his field and listening with genuine interest. Carnegie himself contributed little to the conversation, yet the botanist left feeling deeply impressed. This story illustrates that people feel valued when someone listens without interrupting or steering the conversation back to themselves. Carnegie explains that being a good listener is not about offering advice or solutions. It's about making the other person feel important through undivided attention. In the fifth chapter, Carnegie builds on the previous lessons with the principle, talk in terms of the other person's interests. He explains that discussing what excites someone else naturally engages them and strengthens your connection. Carnegie shares a story about a factory owner who wanted to secure a loan. Instead of discussing the factory's needs, the owner focused on what the banker was passionate about, his horses. By asking insightful questions about the banker's prized animals, the owner built trust and rapport, ultimately securing the loan. The lesson here is to shift your focus outward. Find out what drives the other person and let that guide your conversation. People are more likely to respond positively when their passions are acknowledged and respected. The final chapter of Part 2 introduces the principle, Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. Carnegie emphasizes that every human being has a deep-seated desire to feel significant. He shares a story of a young man working as a telegraph operator who transformed a potentially hostile situation with a railroad executive into an opportunity. The young man spoke to the executive with respect and genuine appreciation for his time, leading to a positive outcome. Carnegie explains that when you make others feel important, they naturally gravitate toward you. He warns, however, against insincere flattery, which can backfire and damage trust. Instead, he advises finding authentic reasons to praise someone, whether it's their work ethic, creativity, or kindness. Across these 6 chapters, Carnegie weaves a tapestry of human connection. Each principle builds upon the last, forming a cohesive strategy for making people like you. The foundational idea is that relationships flourish when you prioritize the other person's needs and emotions, whether it's by showing genuine interest, remembering their name, or making them feel significant. These practices create meaningful bonds. Carnegie's examples illustrate that these principles are not just abstract ideas, but practical tools that can be applied to everyday interactions. By embracing these lessons, anyone can cultivate deeper connections and build lasting rapport. Carnegie opens part 3 with a profound truth. Arguments rarely produce positive outcomes. The principle in the first chapter is, the best way to win an argument is to avoid it. Carnegie explains that even if you win an argument, you often lose the goodwill of the other person. To illustrate, he recounts the story of a businessman who found himself in a heated debate with a customer. Initially, the businessman tried to prove the customer wrong, but this approach only escalated tensions. Later, he realized the futility of his strategy and shifted to active listening and empathy. This change not only diffused the argument, but also saved the business relationship. Carnegie emphasizes that instead of arguing, it is more effective to seek mutual understanding and look for common ground. The second chapter focuses on the dangers of directly telling someone they are wrong, introducing the principle, show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, you're wrong. Carnegie explains that bluntly pointing out someone's error bruises their ego and often leads to defensiveness. He shares a historical example involving Abraham Lincoln, who avoided outright criticism even in the face of disagreements. Instead of attacking opposing viewpoints, Lincoln chose tactful communication that preserved relationships. Carnegie also describes a sales manager who learned to stop correcting his team publicly, opting instead for private, respectful conversations. By showing respect for others' perspectives, you create an environment where disagreements can be resolved constructively. In the third chapter, Carnegie advocates for a counterintuitive yet powerful strategy, admitting your mistakes. The principle here is, when you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Admitting errors disarms criticism and builds trust. Carnegie shares the story of a dog owner who accidentally let his pet damage a neighbor's garden. Instead of making excuses, the owner immediately apologized and offered to pay for the damages. The neighbor, impressed by his sincerity, refused compensation and appreciated the gesture. Carnegie explains that admitting mistakes not only resolves conflicts, but also strengthens relationships by demonstrating humility. The fourth chapter introduces the concept of starting interactions with kindness and empathy. The principle is, begin in a friendly way. Carnegie recounts a story of Abraham Lincoln during his inaugural address, where he addressed a divided nation with warmth and understanding rather than criticism or demands. His approach helped soothe tensions during one of the most contentious periods in American history. Carnegie explains that beginning interactions on a positive note encourages cooperation and fosters goodwill. Even in tense situations, a friendly demeanor can change the tone of a conversation and pave the way for constructive dialogue. In the fifth chapter, Carnegie discusses the art of persuasion through agreement. The principle is, get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. He explains that starting conversations with points of agreement builds momentum toward resolving disagreements. Carnegie illustrates this with a story of a salesperson who began meetings by asking questions the client was likely to agree with, such as inquiries about their success or shared experiences. This method created a positive atmosphere that made clients more receptive to the salesperson's pitch. Carnegie emphasizes that the Socratic method, asking questions that elicit agreement, can be a powerful tool for influencing others. The sixth chapter focuses on the importance of allowing others to express their grievances fully. The principle here is, let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Carnegie shares the example of a hotel manager dealing with an irate guest. Instead of interrupting or defending the hotel's policies, the manager let the guest vent their frustrations. Once the guest felt heard, their anger subsided, and the manager was able to offer a solution. Carnegie explains that listening attentively not only diffuses tension, but also makes the other person feel valued. This principle applies in both personal and professional relationships, where giving someone the space to express themselves can lead to deeper understanding and cooperation. In the seventh chapter, Carnegie emphasizes involving others in problem solving. The principle is, let the other person feel the idea is theirs. He recounts a story of a manager who faced resistance to a new workplace policy. Instead of imposing the change, the manager asked employees for their input and incorporated their suggestions. This approach turned potential dissent into enthusiasm, as the employees felt ownership over the solution. Carnegie explains that people are more likely to support ideas they helped create. By encouraging collaboration and valuing others' input, you can win their support and build stronger relationships. Carnegie closes part 3 by discussing the importance of appealing to people's better nature. The principle is, appeal to the nobler motives. He recounts the story of a lawyer who successfully negotiated with a difficult opposing counsel by framing his request as a matter of fairness and justice. This appeal to the other lawyer's sense of integrity turned a contentious negotiation into a collaborative effort. Carnegie explains that people are motivated not just by self-interest, but also by their desire to uphold values like honesty, generosity, and fairness. By appealing to these higher motives, you can inspire others to act in alignment with their best selves. Throughout Part 3, Carnegie provides a comprehensive blueprint for influencing others without creating resentment. The principles emphasize empathy, respect, and collaboration, moving away from confrontational or coercive tactics. By avoiding arguments, admitting mistakes, starting interactions with friendliness, and appealing to shared values, you can win people to your way of thinking while preserving and strengthening your relationships. Each chapter builds on the idea that influence stems not from dominance, but from understanding and genuine connection. Part 4 of Carnegie's book focuses on leadership and the art of guiding others toward positive change without creating hostility. Carnegie introduces this section with a critical idea. Correction and feedback, if not handled tactfully, can lead to resentment and resistance. Each chapter presents actionable principles, illustrated with real-world examples, to help leaders inspire and influence others effectively. The first chapter in Part 4 highlights the importance of starting with praise before addressing faults. The principle is, begin with praise and honest appreciation. Carnegie explains that when feedback begins with genuine acknowledgement of someone's strengths, it sets a positive tone and makes the individual more receptive to constructive criticism. He shares the story of a manager who needed to address an employee's frequent mistakes. Instead of pointing out the errors immediately, the manager began by praising the employee's strong work ethic and contributions to the team. Only then did he discuss areas for improvement. This approach avoided defensiveness and motivated the employee to do better. Carnegie emphasizes that sincere praise builds trust, creating a foundation for offering guidance without offending. The next chapter addresses the idea of indirect criticism, introducing the principle, call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Carnegie explains that framing criticism in a way that avoids direct blame preserves relationships and encourages positive change. He recounts an anecdote of a business owner who used humor to address an employee's repeated tardiness. Instead of reprimanding the employee publicly, the owner casually mentioned how the early bird catches the worm in a lighthearted tone, prompting the employee to correct their behavior without feeling attacked. This strategy not only resolved the issue, but also strengthened the bond between the employer and the employee. Carnegie advises readers to use tactful language and avoid harsh words when addressing mistakes. Carnegie continues with the principle, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. He emphasizes that admitting your own imperfections creates an environment of equality and understanding, making it easier for others to accept feedback. For instance, Carnegie shares the story of a supervisor who wanted to correct a new employee's inefficient work habits. Instead of pointing out the flaws outright, the supervisor first admitted that he had made similar mistakes early in his career. This admission softened the conversation, allowing the employee to view the feedback as supportive rather than punitive. Carnegie explains that humility disarms defensiveness and fosters a collaborative atmosphere. The fourth chapter introduces the principle, ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Carnegie argues that people are more likely to comply with suggestions when they feel involved in the decision-making process. He shares the story of a factory manager who needed employees to follow a new safety protocol. Instead of issuing a command, the manager asked the team, "How can we ensure everyone stays safe on the floor?" This approach sparked discussion and encouraged employees to take ownership of the solution. Carnegie emphasizes that asking questions not only shows respect, but also inspires cooperation and accountability. The principle in the fifth chapter is, let the other person save face. Carnegie explains that preserving someone's dignity during difficult conversations is crucial for maintaining goodwill and trust. He recounts a situation where a teacher needed to correct a student's disruptive behavior. Instead of embarrassing the student in front of the class, the teacher addressed the issue privately, allowing the student to make amends without public humiliation. Carnegie stresses that humiliating others, even unintentionally, damages relationships and can lead to resentment. By handling sensitive situations with care, leaders can address problems while strengthening the bond with the individual. The sixth chapter highlights the power of encouragement with the principle, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Carnegie illustrates this with a story of a young boy learning to play the piano. The boy's teacher, instead of pointing out his mistakes, praised his progress and small victories. This encouragement motivated the boy to continue practicing and eventually master the instrument. Carnegie explains that consistent, genuine praise inspires people to keep improving and builds their confidence. As a leader, recognizing even minor achievements can create a culture of positivity and growth. Carnegie introduces a powerful strategy in the seventh chapter. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. He explains that labeling someone with a positive trait encourages them to embody that characteristic. For example, Carnegie shares the story of a struggling employee whom a manager referred to as the most reliable person on the team. This comment not only boosted the employee's morale, but also motivated them to live up to the label. Carnegie advises leaders to highlight potential and frame expectations positively, helping people see themselves in a more favorable light. The eighth chapter presents the principle, use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Carnegie explains that framing challenges as manageable boosts confidence and inspires action. He tells the story of a factory supervisor who needed an employee to improve their efficiency. Instead of emphasizing the difficulty of the task, the supervisor said, "I know you can handle this. You've already made great progress." This encouragement helped the employee approach the task with optimism and succeed. Carnegie emphasizes that leaders should focus on solutions and possibilities rather than obstacles, making it easier for others to embrace change. The final chapter of Part 4 emphasizes inspiring enthusiasm with the principle, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. Carnegie explains that aligning a task with the other person's goals or interests motivates them to take action willingly. He shares the story of a parent who struggled to get their child to clean their room. Instead of issuing commands, the parent framed the task as an opportunity to earn rewards and have a space to display their favorite toys. This approach turned a chore into an exciting challenge for the child. Carnegie stresses that appealing to someone's motivations and showing how a task benefits them can transform resistance into cooperation. Part 4 weaves together a framework for leading others with empathy, tact, and encouragement. Carnegie's principles highlight the importance of preserving dignity, fostering collaboration, and inspiring confidence. Each strategy builds on the idea that leadership is not about authority or control, but about guiding others toward their best selves. By applying these principles, leaders can influence change without creating conflict, building trust and respect in the process. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Dale Carnegie's timeless masterpiece, How to Win Friends and Influence People. We've explored practical principles that can transform the way you connect with others, whether in your personal life, at work, or even in casual interactions. From mastering the art of genuine appreciation to inspiring others through encouragement and respect, these lessons are as relevant today as they were when the book was first written. The beauty of Carnegie's advice is its simplicity. These aren't complicated theories. They're actionable, human-centered strategies that anyone can apply starting today. Remember, the key to influence isn't about manipulating or overpowering others. It's about building trust, fostering goodwill, and creating genuine, lasting connections. Whether it's a heartfelt smile, a kind word, or a thoughtful question, small gestures can lead to monumental shifts in relationships. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to try out just one of these principles in your daily life. Notice how people respond when you take the time to listen, remember their name, or give them honest praise. You might be surprised by how much of a difference it makes. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who could use these lessons, and subscribe for more insightful content. And let me know in the comments which principle you found most impactful or one that you've already applied in your own life. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories. Thanks for watching, and remember, when you focus on making others feel valued and important, you'll win friends, influence people, and build relationships that last a lifetime. See you in the next video.